Hi, everybody. So I am thrilled to have Kathy Cahill with us and to tell you how I know. So welcome, Kathy. And she is the CEO of I want to get it right, the Highmark Mann Center, which actually is part of the amazing story. I actually have always, and I told you this, Kathy, I've always admired her, how she took what is a 50-year-old organization, the Mann Center, and has really done a gigantic turnaround. And so we were talking, I was like, would you like come on the empowerment series and talk about, you and your leadership style and, with the time you bet on yourself. But before I do that, if I'm right, and Kathy, correct me, but you've got this crazy career. You were CEO of the Brooklyn Philharmonic. You were executive director of the Toronto Symphony. You were general manager of the New York Philharmonic. And then you came here to the Man.
That's correct. And prior to that, one other important one, I
Oh,
was also the festival and artistic director of the Grant Park Music Festival in Chicago on the waterfront, their premier city summer music program on the waterfront of the great city of Chicago. So I've been really blessed with some terrific organizations that I've had the privilege of working for.
so are you sure though that you're blessed, or is it like you're kind of good at what you're doing and you know how to affect change? Because, right, that's kind of a pretty big resume.
Oh, thanks. So I have been blessed. So I really see it that way. I get to do what I love every day. So I don't go to work. It's not a job. Yes, it's a career trajectory, but it's really a calling, Sue,
Mm.
that for me to be around music, which is my passion, I'm a professionally trained classical cellist, and to be able every day to still affect change, meet musicians and artists where they are, and also really try to understand the audiences that we deal with here, both at the Highmark Mann Center, but in other institutions I worked for, and making sure we can find a creative and what's the right word? Welcoming way for audiences to come and enjoy whatever the kind of music is that they particularly love. Classical music has been my background, but I will tell you, having come to the Mann Center or the Highmark Mann now, um, I've had to learn about all kinds of genres because rock and roll, if you will, or contemporary music was not my background, but we do a lot of that. And again, we really believe here at the Highmark Man that we have something for everyone. And that's part of our mission to be available to everyone and to be accessible.
So I'm just gonna veer off course and ask you, so like what performer kind of threw you for a loop, being a classically trained musician and
Well, there have been a couple of shows that we've had, and I'm like, wow, that's just not music that I have history with or knowing, as an example. But on the other hand, I'm really grateful to learn about those artists. So David Byrne, everybody was talking about David Byrne, David Byrne. I didn't know really, I should have,
yeah.
but I didn't know enough about his music. And when we did the show, it was incredible. I'll never forget the music, the theatrical production elements, the choreography, everything was phenomenal. There are artists that I have known, but I didn't have a chance to ever really follow or work with. So God rest his soul. And we had Tony Bennett, a true gentleman. What you saw on the stage is what it was backstage. To see someone of that caliber, especially in the twilight of his career, and still having an audience, eating right out of the palm of his hand because he was such a beloved performer. You have moments like that. You're like, this is incredible. We just had Ringo Starr this past year. He had canceled, unfortunately, the year before because of sickness. But to be backstage with the Beatles, I'm not a groupie, but this one I was like, oh my God, there's a Beatle in the house. So there have been special moments for sure that are not classical, if you will.
Yeah, and so like is that like part of your leadership style, do you think, to be sort of open to these new experiences and to is it are you like, okay, I'm mission driven, so I'm gonna make sure that we talk to our audience and bring all or so no, is that part of your personality or is it more, you did obviously you did different things for the Brooklyn Philharmonic or the New York Philharmonic. I mean,
Right.
any thoughts about that? I mean, how you lead that way or
Well, I think for us, mission driven is absolutely the core course that we stay on. It is not uncommon in nonprofits in the performing arts, which is the world I can really speak to to be tempted to veer off course and off mission because there may be a funding opportunity that has a particular agenda. And you have to just really be careful not to stray from mission because it's really easy to do and it
Mm.
can be really damaging to the organization if you get too far afield. So, but with that said, the variety of programming that the man has had to embrace is significant. And I'll give you an example. You know, it used to be at the Highmark Mann that we did mostly orchestral concerts, and that's my world, right? So I'm like, great. However, when I saw the size of the audiences, and remember when you do come to the Highmark Mann, there's 14,000 seats to fill every night, so it's not a small house. And it's single tickets, which means it's not a subscription base so that you don't have a recurring revenue stream and a guarantee of attendees. So basically every show has to stand on its own. And some of the orchestral shows, the purely classical, when I first came, were not performing well as far as audience attendance. And so we were the first in Philadelphia to have the orchestra, the Great Philadelphia Orchestra. It was my very first job. I worked for them back when I was in school, grad school.
Love that.
I worked for them during the day, went to grad school at Drexel at night, in arts administration. But we were looking and saying, okay, what do we have to do to engage families? What do we have to do to broaden our audience appeal? And so we started doing and launched a series called Movies at the Man. And there were just at that
Mhm.
time these great epic movies that were coming out in a format where there would be the orchestra live on stage, a giant video screen above their heads, and the music would be extracted from the actual movie. So the orchestra would be playing live perfectly in sync with what was happening on the movie screen. And we were looking at epics of John Williams music and others of that ilk. And I said to the Philadelphia Orchestra at the time, we will never ask you to play anything movie-wise that isn't great film music or great score. So we did West Side Story as an example. We did The Godfather. So they may not have been John Williams, but they still were worthy. And we saw audiences flock. And when we got the call, we did the first concerts of a series of Harry Potter movies when they came out. We were the entity at that point, the man and the orchestra were able to get the launch of the Harry Potter series. We sold 10,000 tickets in like 24 hours. I thought that they had got the print wrong on the report. Like there's a mistake
Right.
here. This can't be. That doesn't ever happen here. And it did. But the
Wow.
point is, again, we pushed the boundaries because we needed to, and yet we needed to do it with integrity, right? And so, of course, now everybody's doing them, and that's fine, and they're great, and they're crowd pleasers, and whether it's Raiders of the Lost Ark or Star Wars or Harry Potter, or the list can go on and on. That was a push for us and a change, but we recognized that we needed to change in the right manner if we were going to continue to be relevant and continue to really serve the greater Philadelphia region, and now way beyond that. We have people coming from all kinds of other states now.
And I also love the collaboration aspect. The fact that you, right, worked with the orchestra and said, let's make this work together. The one thing they say about Philadelphia that I certainly heard, I'm sure you've heard too, is that everybody's in their own silo and doing their own thing. And the more you come together, the better it is for for your organization, but also for the city and the region. So, good for both of you, right?
Thanks. It's not easy. Not the orchestra is
No.
a long-standing partner, but collaborations and partnerships are not easy. And I was a little taken back when I got here to the silo world. Like, really?
Mhm.
Because that wasn't quite my experience elsewhere. So it's been a journey with us, but we do collaborate a lot with many institutions and many organizations. And we find that, and I say this all the time, there are lots of things we don't do at all, or we can't do well. And if we can't do something well, we're not doing it. So let's find the right partners who can come in and let's set the stage that we understand our expectations, their strengths, what they anticipate that we'll deliver, and be very clear about that up front. And so that hopefully will, at least as you move through the relationship and whatever the event is that you're doing, make it a better experience for both sides. And I would say 9 times out of 10, if we do that well, we're in good stead. We've had a few hiccups, who doesn't? But yeah.
And so that is a perfect segue into, so with all that experience, like, can you pick a time when you decide to bet on yourself?
So that's a great question. I think the one that came to mind when you and I chatted about that is something for me to think about in advance of today's discussion. I think it was when I was in Chicago. This is in the mid 90s, early 90s, running the Grand Park Music Festival in Chicago, which had a full-time orchestra and a full-time professional chorus. It was, working with the city was a huge learning curve, and running a big venue was all part and parcel of it. And when I got the call that the New York Philharmonic was looking for a general manager, I had always wanted to either be in the summer music festival business, which and or working with orchestras that I really respected and with music directors that I could really learn from and contribute to. And I remember when I got the call and I'm like, me? I'm just this kid from New Jersey, right? The imposter syndrome. I'm like, I love what I do. And I'm like living in Chicago, which I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. Fabulous city at the time. And I lived there. I loved it. I can't speak to it now because I haven't been there in a long time. But I was torn because it was the great New York Philharmonic. And at the same time, like me, little old me, really? So I went for the interview and I thought, oh, for sure, they're not going to hire me.
Wow.
I was really convinced. And then they offered it to me. I was so, it like changed my life. It really was a game changer and a life changer to have had that opportunity and that job.
And so when you went in for the interview, were you like in some ways more relaxed? Because you just said you were like, why me? And you probably just went in and were your authentic self, which it sounds like you are anyhow, right? So I don't know. You
I
tell
think
me.
I was because I really didn't think I was going to get it. And some of the questions were like, I had to really think on my feet. I'll give you an example. God rest his soul. The music director at the time was the famous maestro Kurt Masur. He was German and he had a thick accent. And in the interview, one of the questions he asked me is if I was honest. Like, who asks if you're honest? Like what, I have a scarlet letter, S
Right.
on me or something. I had no idea what he meant, right? And I had to really think through that and figure out, oh, I think I know what he's asking is like, am I a team player? Am I straightforward? Am I going to always give him the truth, whether it's good news or bad news kind of thing? And I had to reformulate it in my head to ask back, oh, if that's what you're asking me, let me tell you about my experience, right? And how I work. And I wasn't sure if I even got it right. I thought maybe he wanted to ask something else and I interpreted it wrong. So I remember walking out there going, oh, I'm sure I screwed this up. So yeah, and it was an incredibly heady time. So, uh, you know, sometimes you just bet on yourself or you act as if. But at the end of the day, my experience is people just want to know who people are. And if you come in and you're a little too buttoned up, or if you're a little too formal, and get it, everybody's always nervous in interviews. I so get that, right? But making people feel relaxed, et cetera, you get to see the true person because that's who you're going to work with or work
Mhm.
for. And so, anyway, that's my story on that one.
I love that. And yeah, and so all I have to say is boy, this transformation that I witnessed, not from afar, but have been watching, now we all know why, after talking to you. So I appreciate your coming on and sharing that story with us, and congratulations on all these, successes you're having, and can't thank you enough for your leadership and what you're doing, for all of us. The culture and arts is really, one of the great, I think, parts that makes us a world-class city. So we appreciate you.
Also, I thank you for having me. I do want to say that it is a team sport at the Highmark Mann. I have many, many great people I have the privilege of working with. I have an outstanding board of directors who are so supportive and who really love the man. And I have probably the best senior team in the arts community, if I get to brag a little. Or I'm certainly they'll give everyone a run for the money. They really every day show up at 110%. And I am very lucky to have that because it allows me then to think and as opposed to always doing. It's really challenging, as you know, to manage time and figure out where you have time to think and time to do. And I have a team that thinks and does and performs and delivers and understands the culture and the mission. And that for me is half the battle. And the rest of it is there's a lot of people who love this institution. And to your point, it's another gem in the crown of a world-class city. By
Mhm.
the way, there's only one other major city who has inside that city proper a venue like us, and that's the Hollywood Bowl in LA. All the other venues, Ravinia is a spectacular summer home, but it's in Highland Park, an hour and a half outside of Chicago. Tanglewood, the grand dame of us all, they're in Lenox, Massachusetts, and the glorious Berkshires, but it's far from New York and or Boston. The Highmark Mann is equally situated from Center City, Chestnut Hill, the Main Line, South Jersey, we're not far. And I think that makes it also a really special bragging right for the city that we have something so close by that everybody can participate in.
Perfectly said. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's awesome.